My former partner hurled acid at my face, and bewilderingly, my family now believes he's the only person left who could still love me, stopping at absolutely nothing to get us back together. Have you ever faced a betrayal so deep, so unthinkable, that it twists your entire reality? What if the person who blinded you was delivered back into your life by your own mother and sister, all under the guise of helping you? This isn't just a story about an attack. It's about a horrifying setup, a fight for my freedom, and the shocking truth that sometimes, the people who claim to love you most are the most dangerous. It all started 3 months after I finally broke up with Samuel. He'd become terrifyingly possessive, you know? Showing up uninvited at my law school classes, demanding to put GPS trackers in my bag, in my car. It was too much. The breakup was messy, but I truly thought it was over. Until the night I came home from the library, exhausted, and found him waiting. In my apartment building's stairwell. He stood there, just standing, holding this industrial cleaner. And the words he said? They're burned into my memory. If I can't have you, nobody can. Before I could even process it, before I could scream or run, I felt liquid splash onto my face. Then came the white, searing pain. Oh God, the pain. I was screaming, clawing at my face, the smell of acid mixing with the horrifying stench of my own skin melting. I threw up right there in the stairwell. When I finally woke up, 3 days later, my entire world was just black. A terrifying, endless black. The doctors, their voices hushed, explained it to me. The chemical had destroyed my eyes. Completely. I was permanently blind. And it wasn't just my eyes. My face, it was gone. My nose was mostly gone, my lips twisted and scarred, my skin a patchwork of burns and grafts. It would take 11 surgeries over months just to put me back together. I moved back into my childhood bedroom at my parents' house, my days now a blur of physical therapy and learning to navigate with a white cane. My mom told me he'd been arrested, that he was in prison. But then she added he was writing letters. Every single day, asking her to read them to me. I told her to throw them away. I never wanted to hear his name again. Not ever. A few weeks later, over breakfast, my mom brought up the letters again. Casually, she mentioned Samuel was in therapy in prison, that he was deeply sorry. I snapped. I told her I didn't care, that I'd rather die than speak to him again. Then my sister, Ruth, started in. When she visited, she'd bring up things from the letters, telling me how Samuel still thought I was beautiful. I just screamed at her to get out of my room. My dad even tried. He sat me down, said Samuel's family had money, wanted to pay for experimental treatments in Europe. I told him I'd rather stay blind forever than take a single penny from the man who destroyed my life. They kept pushing. And I kept shutting them down, harder each time. They were insane, I thought, for even suggesting I forgive him. I tried to move on. I made a profile on a dating app. Matched with a few guys. Every single one ghosted me the second I explained what happened to my face. I went on one actual date. One. I could hear the guy's voice change when he saw me. He made some lame excuse about a work emergency and left after 10 minutes. My family finally seemed to get it then. My mom said, okay, she understood. She just wanted me to be happy with someone. A few weeks later, Ruth started again. This time, she mentioned her husband's coworker, Julius. He'd recently lost his vision in a car accident and was looking to meet other people in the blind community. She said he was a few years older, worked in physical therapy. He specifically wanted to meet someone who understood what he was going through. He'd seen my picture from before the attack and thought I seemed really interesting. Ruth kept bringing up Julius over the next few weeks, his volunteer work, his dog, how he loved the same books I did. My mom chimed in, saying Julius's family was really nice and would love to meet me. I was hesitant, but I was also desperate for any kind of connection. Everyone kept saying how perfect we were for each other, navigating blindness together. A few months went by and Ruth called, excited. Julius was finally ready to meet me. He'd been asking about me constantly, so excited for our date. She drove me to a restaurant, walked me to a table, and said Julius would be there any minute. I heard her footsteps fade away. I sat there, trying to calm my breathing, praying, begging that this would be different. Then, footsteps approached. Someone pulled out the chair across from me and sat down. And then, I heard a voice that made my blood turn to ice. "Hi, sweetheart. I've missed you so much." It was Samuel. I stood up so fast my chair crashed backward. "Ruth." I screamed, but no one answered. I fumbled for my cane, couldn't find it. Panic surged. I started moving blindly toward where I thought the door was. Samuel's voice followed me, calm and chilling. He talked about how my family had set this up because we belonged together. How there was no Julius. There never had been. I found a wall, felt along it, until my hand hit a door handle. I pulled. It wouldn't open. Another door. Locked too. Samuel's voice was closer now. "They locked us in here so we'd have to talk. This isn't a restaurant. They really want what's best for you." I screamed for help, as loud as I could, my voice raw and cracking. He just kept talking about how everyone wanted what was best for us. How my family had worked so hard to set this up. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely keep them flat against the wall as I searched for any crack or seam, anything that might be a window. The wall was smooth, cold. Just painted drywall. Nothing that would open. I moved faster, fingers scraping, until I found another corner. I turned, kept going, my breath coming in short gasps. Samuel's voice, still calm, steady, followed me around the room, like he was discussing the weather, not holding me prisoner. I found what felt like a window frame, but it wouldn't budge. Painted shut or nailed closed. My chest tightened. I couldn't get enough air. I screamed again, louder this time, for anyone. He just kept talking about second chances, about how love could overcome anything. His footsteps were getting closer. Panic exploded through my body. I remembered the chair I'd knocked over. I dropped to my hands and knees, sweeping my arms across the floor until I found it. I grabbed it, stood up fast, holding it in front of me, the legs pointing toward where I'd last heard him. My arms were shaking, but I held it there like a weapon. Between us. The footsteps stopped. I heard him sigh. His voice changed completely. That fake, understanding tone evaporated, replaced by something quieter, more controlled. It was that voice. The one he used right before he'd grab my wrist too hard, or back me into a corner in my apartment. The hair on my arms stood on end. I gripped the chair tighter. He said my name, drawing it out slow, careful, and I knew he was trying to decide if I'd actually hit him. I moved the chair slightly, letting it scrape the floor. "Stay away from me," I choked out. My voice wasn't as strong as I wanted, but at least it didn't break. "Your family's waiting right outside the door," he said. "They aren't letting either of us out until we talk things through like adults. They all agreed this was the only way to make you listen, since you've been so stubborn about refusing to read my letters." Something hot and angry rose up in my chest. "The only thing I want to say," I yelled, my voice growing louder, "is that you are a monster who destroyed my entire life." I kept going. My family were monsters too, for helping him do this. "You took my eyes, my face, my whole future. And now you're taking my freedom too." The chair was heavy, but I didn't lower it. "I'd rather die than ever forgive you for what you did to me in that stairwell." My throat hurt from screaming, but I didn't care. I wanted him to hear how much I hated him, that nothing he could ever say would change what he'd done. Then a door opened. Ruth's voice came from somewhere outside. So normal. "We just wanted you to have a real conversation," she said. "Samuel's changed so much in prison. He's gone through therapy." Like she was suggesting we go for coffee, not admitting she'd helped kidnap me. "You're completely insane." I screamed. "I will never forgive any of you for this. Not ever. Not if I live to be 100 years old." My voice cracked. I hated that she could probably hear me starting to cry. "You're my sister. You were supposed to protect me, not hand me over to the man who blinded me." Ruth said something back, something about me not being fair, about Samuel making a terrible mistake, but he was trying to make it right. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Let me out right now," I yelled. "This is kidnapping. You're all going to jail." My mother's voice joined in from outside the door, and I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. She was pleading with me, just to listen. To understand how hard this had been for Samuel too. She said he loved me so much, had been suffering every day since the attack, that he wanted nothing more than to take care of me for the rest of my life. The betrayal hit me so hard I actually couldn't breathe for a second. I bent over, still clinging to the chair, gasping for air. My own mother, standing outside that locked door, caring more about my attacker's feelings than my safety, valuing his suffering over mine. I felt dizzy sick. How was this happening? She kept talking about Samuel's family, their money, how they could help me. How he was my best chance at having someone who would love me despite what I looked like now. Each word felt like another acid burn. I straightened up, screaming at the door. I'm calling the police right now. This is kidnapping and false imprisonment. I know the legal definitions because I'm a law student. You will all be arrested and charged, and I will make sure you go to jail for this. Ruth's voice, still so calm, so reasonable, came back. We're not kidnapping you. We're just giving you some space to reconnect without outside pressure. We researched this intervention method. My mother agreed, both of them genuinely believing they were helping me. It hit me then. They really thought this was okay. That trapping me in a room with the man who threw acid in my face was some kind of loving gesture. They'd convinced themselves this was for my own good. I couldn't process how twisted their thinking had become. Giving someone space means leaving them alone, I yelled, not locking them in a room against their will. Samuel moved closer. His footsteps were right in front of me. He said he just wanted to touch my hand, to show me he was still the same person who loved me. I swung the chair as hard as I could toward his voice. I felt it connect with something solid and heard him grunt in pain. The impact traveled up my arms. I almost dropped the chair, but held on. I heard him stumble backward, something crashing. Maybe him hitting a table or wall. My mother gasped from outside the door. Oh my God, she kept saying. Ruth's voice got sharp. There's no need for violence. Samuel is the one who taught me about violence, I screamed back, when he melted my face off. If he comes near me again, I'll hit him harder. My hands were shaking worse now, but I kept the chair up. Samuel was breathing hard somewhere across the room, silent. A tiny bit of satisfaction flared, knowing I'd actually hurt him, even though I was still trapped. I started screaming again about false imprisonment, about how I knew exactly the legal definitions. I yelled that this met every single requirement for kidnapping charges, that they'd lured me here under false pretenses, holding me against my will. My voice was getting hoarse, but I kept going, listing off the specific laws they were breaking. I'm a law student. I screamed. I will personally make sure the prosecutor throws the book at all of you. My mother's voice came back, shaking now. Not as confident. She said they'd let me out in just a few hours. They just needed me to listen to Samuel first and give him a real chance to explain. She said if I would just calm down and talk to him like an adult, we could all go home and forget this ever happened. I will never forget this, I told her. And neither will the police when I report all of you. I reached into my pocket, fumbling for my phone. I'm calling 911 right now. I yelled. You are all going to be arrested. Samuel moved fast. Suddenly his hands grabbed mine, yanking the phone away. I tried to hold on, but he was stronger. I heard it hit the floor. Then he started stomping on it over and over, the sickening sound of glass and plastic breaking under his shoe. I screamed at him to stop, but he kept going until there were no more crunching sounds. My phone was destroyed. Tears streamed down my face. I couldn't stop them. I was completely cut off now. No way to call for help. No way to contact anyone. Samuel was breathing hard from the effort. I could smell his sweat. The room went quiet, except for my ragged breathing and the pounding of my heart. I backed up until I felt the wall, then slid down, sitting on the floor, still holding the chair across my lap. Samuel's voice came from across the room, soft and careful again. He just wanted a chance to explain himself, to tell me his side of what happened that night. I heard my mother and Ruth murmuring encouragement from outside, telling him to go ahead, that I was finally listening. I wasn't listening, though. I was thinking about how I'd trusted my family to keep me safe. And they'd sold me out to the man who destroyed my life. I was thinking about how I'd believed there was someone named Julius who might actually want to date me. How stupid I'd been to hope for anything good. I sat there in the dark. That was my whole world now. Trapped. Alone. With my attacker. While my family cheered him on from the other side of a locked door. My legs were shaking too bad to hold me up. I kept the chair in my lap like a shield, trying to remember everything from the self-defense classes they made me take during mobility training. Samuel's footsteps stayed across the room. I could hear him breathing hard from where I'd hit him. He started talking again, in that soft voice he always used when he wanted something. He'd been in therapy 3 times a week in prison, he said. His therapist said he had abandonment issues from childhood that made him react badly to the breakup. He understood now that what he did was wrong. He'd spent every day working on himself so he could be better for me. I couldn't listen to this garbage anymore. Being sorry, I interrupted, my voice shaky but firm. Doesn't give me back my eyes, or my face, or my law school career that I worked so hard for. My voice broke. You took everything from me. And now my family is helping you take even more by trapping me in this room. Ruth's voice came from outside the door, annoyed. Like I was being difficult. You're being way too dramatic about this whole thing, she said. We researched this intervention approach with a family counselor who specialized in reconciliation. Everyone agreed this was the best way to help you move forward. The words hit me like cold water. I felt sick. They'd planned this. For weeks, maybe months. They'd built the whole fake Julius profile, coordinated with Samuel, probably practiced what they were going to say. Every single conversation about Julius had been a lie designed to trap me here. How long have you been talking to Samuel? I asked, my voice flat, distant. My mother answered immediately, like she'd been waiting for me to ask. Samuel started writing letters a month after the attack. His letters were so heartfelt and full of remorse, she just couldn't throw them away. She could tell he was genuinely sorry and really loved me. The full scope of what they'd done crashed over me. I couldn't breathe. They'd been secretly supporting my attacker this entire time, while pretending to care about my recovery. Every sympathetic conversation about my therapy, my mobility training, had been a lie. They plotted behind my back to force me back together with him. All those times my mother hugged me and said she just wanted me to be happy. She was planning this. All those times Ruth visited and acted like she cared. She was building the Julius lie. You are accomplices to his crime now, I told them. And I will make sure the police know you helped him get access to me again. My mother's voice got defensive, shrill. We were just trying to help you find love, she said, since no one else was going to want you now with your face looking the way it does. Those words hurt worse than the acid. I started crying, even though I was trying so hard to stay strong. Ruth cut in. You need to be realistic about your options now. Samuel already knows what you look like, and he still wants to be with you. That's more than you're going to get from anyone else. Samuel spoke up again. I will take care of you forever, he said. I know I caused all of this, but I want to spend the rest of my life making it up to you. You're supposed to be in prison. I screamed. How are you even here? My mother explained, her voice calm again, like she was talking about the weather. Samuel's lawyer got him released on bail while they appealed his conviction. His family put up their house as collateral. They'd all been working together for months to plan this reconciliation because they cared so much about my future happiness. I sat there in my corner, tears running down my ruined face, and realized I was dealing with people who were completely out of their minds. They actually believed they were doing something good by trapping me in a room with the man who blinded me and destroyed my face. I forced myself to stop crying, wiping my face with my sleeve. I needed to stop falling apart and start thinking like the law student I used to be. I started going through everything I knew about kidnapping laws, false imprisonment, what evidence I'd need. I thought about the room's layout, where the doors were, whether that window in the bathroom was really too small. Samuel was still talking about how much he loved me, but I tuned him out. I needed to get out. I need to use the bathroom, I said, my voice forced into a calm I didn't feel. There was a moment of silence. Then I heard Ruth and my mother whispering outside the door. Okay, Ruth finally said. I heard a key turn. The door opened. Ruth's hand grabbed my arm, tight enough to hurt. She pulled me up, guided me out. I tried to memorize the path, counting steps, feeling for changes in the floor. Left. maybe 15 steps. She stopped me, opened another door, pushed me inside. Hurry up, her voice was right behind me. I reached out. Cold tile walls. A sink. My hands shook as I felt around the small bathroom. Toilet, sink, soap dispenser, towel rack. I ran my hands along the walls. A small window, high up. Tiny. Maybe a foot wide. Even if I could break it, climb up, my shoulders wouldn't fit. Ruth's voice came through the door. You have 2 minutes. I kept searching. A metal trash can empty. Under the sink, old cleaning supplies. I wanted to scream, but I forced myself to breathe slowly. I used the toilet so Ruth wouldn't get suspicious. Washed my hands. Ruth opened the door before I was done drying them. Grabbed my arm again, walked me back to the room. The lock clicked. Samuel's voice. He was worried about me. He moved closer. Tried to take my hand. I jerked away so hard I banged my shoulder against the wall. The pain shot through my arm, but I didn't care. I need my medication from your house, I said. My mother's voice. We'll bring it later after we make some progress. What does progress mean? After you agree to give Samuel a real chance. I slid back down to my corner, wrapping my arms around my knees. Hours passed. They took turns trying to convince me. My mother talked about Samuel's therapy. Ruth, all his letters, how sorry he was. Samuel kept saying he wanted to take care of me forever. I stayed silent. I focused on listening to everything. A door opening and closing. Footsteps above us. The room had an echo. High ceiling, I thought. Then, finally, something useful. Traffic sounds. Faint but steady in the distance. Cars passing. A highway? A busy street? The sound helped me understand. We weren't in a neighborhood where someone might hear me scream. The echo suggested a big, empty space. An old office. A warehouse. Yelling for help wouldn't work. My mother came back in. I heard her setting something down. Food and water. The smell of fast food filled the room. My stomach ached. I didn't move. She told me I needed to eat. I don't trust that it's not drugged, I told her. Her voice sounded hurt. She would never do that to me. I almost laughed. She already did something worse. I told her I didn't care about her feelings anymore. She left the food near me and walked out. Time kept passing. Samuel moving around. Eventually, his breathing changed, got deeper. Then, snoring. He'd fallen asleep. I stayed perfectly still, listening. My family members were talking quietly outside. Ruth's voice. I was so stubborn. My mother agreed. Maybe they needed to keep us here for a few days until I see reason. My father's voice joined in. They had time. I'd come around eventually. I waited. Until I was absolutely sure Samuel was deeply asleep. The snoring was steady, loud. I carefully stood up. Started exploring the room more thoroughly. Slowly. Hands out in front of me. I found what felt like a desk. Smooth surface. Next to it, a filing cabinet. Drawers that slid open. Empty. But the metal confirmed it. An abandoned office building. I kept moving, found another desk. Nothing but dust on top. I crouched down. Opened the drawers, one by one. Quietly. First drawer, old papers. Second, paper clips, rubber bands. Third, something metal. I picked it up. Carefully. My fingers traced the shape. A letter opener. Thin. Pointed. I slipped it into my pocket as quietly as possible. I kept exploring. Found a phone jack in the wall. My heart jumped. But no actual phone connected to it. I wanted to cry, so close to being able to call for help. I made myself keep searching. Nothing else useful. I made my way back to my corner, sat down. The letter opener pressed against my leg. I felt slightly less helpless, knowing I had something to defend myself with. I didn't sleep at all that night. Just sat there, listening to Samuel snore, planning. The next morning, the door unlocked. My mother came in. Breakfast. Asked if I slept okay. I ignored her. I need to speak to my Uncle Curtis, I said. Silence. Why? She asked. Because he's the only family member who might actually listen to reason instead of being completely insane. She sounded defensive. They weren't insane. They were trying to help. Kidnapping someone isn't help, I told her. And Curtis will understand that, even if you don't. She hesitated, then said she'd call him. I heard her footsteps leave the room, then the building itself, the sounds fading away. I sat there, hoping desperately that Curtis would come, that he'd be on my side. I waited. Time crawled. 20 minutes? 2 hours? Samuel was still snoring. My family, talking quietly outside. Then, new footsteps. Heavier ones. Curtis's voice, cutting through everything. What the hell is going on here? My mother started explaining, that fake calm voice. But Curtis interrupted. His voice got louder, demanding to know where I was. Ruth tried to say something about giving us space. But Curtis was angrier than I'd ever heard him. This is insane, he boomed. The door unlocked. Swung open. Jesse. Curtis called. I stood up fast, moved toward his voice. Samuel woke up confused. My mother tried to block the doorway. Are you okay? Curtis asked. I grabbed his arm, rushed out everything. The fake Julius, being trapped here with Samuel, my family locking the doors. His whole body went tense under my hand. This is kidnapping, he growled. They've lost their minds. I heard him push forward. My mother protested, but he was a big man. She couldn't stop him. Samuel's voice rose. We just wanted to talk. Curtis told him to shut up, stay back. Ruth grabbed my other arm, trying to pull me from Curtis. He shook her off. You're going to prison for this. My father's voice joined in. They were trying to help me. Curtis cut him off. Helping would be respecting her choices, not trapping her with her attacker. He guided me quickly through the door. I stumbled, but held tight to his arm. My mother followed, saying we needed to calm down. But Curtis kept moving. Stay away from both of us. We went down what felt like stairs. My family's footsteps behind us. But Curtis moved fast. The air changed. We were outside. Curtis helped me into his car. My whole body started shaking, teeth chattering. I couldn't stop it. Curtis got in the driver's seat, locked the doors. I heard my mother banging on the window. He started the engine, pulled out, calling someone on his phone. His voice still angry, he told his wife to meet us at the police station. I needed a lawyer. Right now. I tried to say thank you, but a sob came out. Curtis reached over, squeezed my shoulder. It's okay. You're safe now. I've got you. The drive felt both endless and too short. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Curtis parked, helped me out. His wife must have arrived fast. I heard her voice, asking what happened. Curtis gave her the short version as he walked me inside. I heard the shock in her voice. Inside the police station, Curtis talked to someone. An officer led us to a room. Her voice was kind. She asked me to tell her what happened. I started from the beginning. The fake date. My voice shook, but I got through the whole story. Being locked in. My family refusing to let me out. The officer asked questions. I answered everything, Curtis sitting next to me. She sounded horrified. They were sending units right now. To arrest my mother, Ruth, and Samuel. For kidnapping. And violating Samuel's bail. Another officer came in. More questions. I had to repeat parts until my throat hurt. They took photos of my cane, my clothes. Documented everything. Finally, they said I could go. Curtis helped me back to his car. At his house, his wife showed me to their guest room. Helped me sit on the bed. Brought me water. Asked if I needed anything. But I couldn't answer. Everything hit me at once. My own mother and sister. Trapped me with a man who blinded me. They chose him over me. They thought forcing me into that room was helping. I started crying. Couldn't stop. Curtis's wife sat next to me, rubbing my back. I sobbed about how my family betrayed me, how I had nowhere to go. She said I could stay as long as I needed. Curtis came in, his voice gentle. The police arrested all three. Samuel was back in custody. I cried harder. Arrested or not, it didn't change what they did. The next morning, I woke up, disoriented. Unfamiliar room. I heard Curtis talking on the phone. He knocked, came in. There's a lawyer named Solomon Hardy from Legal Aid who wants to talk to you. I took the phone. Solomon's voice was professional, but warm. Curtis called him last night, explained everything. He wanted to help. Solomon told me I had strong cases for restraining orders against my entire family, for suing them for emotional distress and false imprisonment. His confidence made me feel slightly less helpless. I agreed to meet. Curtis drove me to Solomon's office. Solomon went through everything methodically. Detailed questions notes. He explained the legal process. The criminal charges against my family were serious. The prosecutor was pushing hard. Samuel was arrested at the scene, bail revoked. Back in prison. My mother and Ruth were also arrested, but posted bail. Pending trial. Solomon said they were facing kidnapping, conspiracy, aiding a bail violation. The restraining orders should be approved quickly. Back at Curtis's house, the phone rang. Curtis answered, handed it to me. It's for you. A woman's voice. Asked if I remembered her. Madison Yoon. Law school. It took me a second. She heard what happened through mutual friends. Wondering how I was doing. Her voice didn't have that careful, pitying tone everyone else used. Something in my chest loosened. She asked if she could visit. I said yes. Madison arrived an hour later. Curtis showed her to the guest room. She sat down. Started talking like we were just catching up. No intrusive questions about my face or my blindness. Didn't treat me like glass. We talked for hours. Law school gossip. Terrible reality TV. Her new apartment, annoying neighbor, terrible dating life. I found myself laughing for the first time in days. When I mentioned needing somewhere to stay, Madison interrupted. She had a spare room. Her roommate just moved out. She'd love to have me. Her offer sounded genuine. Not charity. Tears built up again, but good ones this time. She squeezed my hand. I mean it. We're friends, and friends help each other. I told her about the legal stuff Solomon was handling. She listened, asked smart questions. No shock. No horror. Just matter of fact about next steps. Before she left, she gave me her spare key. Move in whenever you're ready. After she was gone, I sat in the guest room, holding the key. Maybe I could actually survive this. 2 days later, Madison drove me to her apartment. Walked me inside. She took my hand, guided me through each room, describing the layout in clear, simple terms. Kitchen straight ahead. Bathroom, first door on the right. Her bedroom at the end of the hall, my room, second door on the left. She asked what I needed to make the space work for me. Not assuming. I felt myself relax. She was treating this like a practical problem to solve, not a tragedy. We spent the afternoon arranging furniture so I could move around easily. She showed me where she kept dishes, food, explained her system. That night, I lay in bed in my new room. I felt something close to safe. For the first time since the attack. The next morning, Solomon called. Filing restraining orders against my mother, Ruth, and Samuel. He explained the process. The judge would review the kidnapping evidence. Likely approve them quickly. 3 days later, he called back. Good news. The judge granted all 3 restraining orders immediately. Legally required to stay at least 500 feet away from me. Violate it, and they'd be arrested. I thanked Solomon, hung up. Actual protection now. A week after moving in, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. A man's voice introduced himself. Kai Monahan. From the Blind Community Center. Heard about my case through disability networks. Wanted to help me develop better skills for living independently. His voice was warm, but matter-of-fact. He'd been blind since birth, navigated this his whole life. I agreed to meet. Kai arrived at Madison's apartment. Shook my hand firmly. Got right to business. What mobility training had I had? Basic cane work from the hospital, I explained. He made a thoughtful sound. There's a lot more you should know. Over the next 2 hours, he taught me techniques I'd never learned. How to use my cane more effectively. Technology that could help with daily tasks. Devices that read text aloud. Apps that identify objects through my phone's camera. He talked about blindness like it was just a different way of moving through the world. Not some terrible tragedy. Something in my chest loosened. We agreed to meet twice a week. The following Monday, Madison drove me to my first appointment with Phoebe Lowry. a therapist for trauma survivors. Solomon connected me. Sliding scale. In her office, I sat on a soft couch. Phoebe's voice was calm. She asked if I wanted to talk about what happened. My throat closed up. I shook my head. That's okay, she said. We can go at whatever pace you need. No pressure to share anything before you're ready. The session passed with her asking gentle questions about what I needed to feel comfortable, safe. I left feeling like maybe therapy wouldn't be as awful as I feared. 2 days later, the prosecutor handling the criminal case called. Introduced himself. My mother and Ruth were facing kidnapping, conspiracy, and endangering charges. Samuel, additional charges for violating bail and intimidation. The prosecutor's voice was serious. They were pushing hard because of the severity. He asked if I was willing to testify. Yes, I said, without hesitation. After we hung up, he called back an hour later. Samuel's original conviction for the acid attack was being appealed, but the new charges from the kidnapping destroyed any chance of his sentence being reduced. In fact, the prosecutor expected Samuel would get additional years. I felt a fierce satisfaction hearing that. Madison helped me start the paperwork for emergency financial aid and disability benefits. We sat at her kitchen table. She read through forms, explaining each section, helping me fill everything out. The process was ridiculously complicated. Endless questions about my condition, finances, family situation. Madison stayed patient through all of it. Looking up information, making phone calls. Never annoyed. Just treated it like something we were working through together. A few days later, Ellie Wagner from Disability Rights Advocacy called. Solomon gave her my information. She wanted to help me file complaints against my family for financial abuse. Because they controlled my money and used it to manipulate me, I had grounds for legal action. Her voice was fierce, confident. Protecting vulnerable adults from family members who take advantage. She helped me file the complaints, walked me through setting up my own bank account that my family couldn't access or control. By the end of the call, I felt like I had another person in my corner. Someone who understood. That weekend, Curtis called to check on me. My mother had been trying to send me letters through him. He'd been refusing to pass them along. He knew I didn't want contact. I thanked him. He told me what the letters said anyway. My mother claimed she was just trying to help me find happiness, didn't understand why I'm so angry. Curtis's voice was disgusted repeating her words. She genuinely seemed to believe the kidnapping was an act of love, that she was the victim here because I wouldn't forgive her. I told Curtis to keep throwing away her letters. He promised he would. My first full therapy session with Phoebe. Her office smelled like lavender. Soft carpet. I sat on a leather couch. She sat across from me in a creaky chair. She asked me to tell her what happened. I started with the kidnapping, but she stopped me. Go back further, she said. To when your family first started pushing you towards Samuel after the attack. I talked for almost an hour. Every letter they tried to make me read. Every guilt trip about how Samuel still loved me. Every time they made me feel unreasonable for not forgiving the man who blinded me. Phoebe listened silently. When I finished, she said something that made me cry. What my family did, she told me, was abuse. Using my disability and isolation to manipulate me into seeing my attacker was not love or good intentions. It was control and harm. She said I didn't owe them forgiveness just because they were family. Cutting them off completely was a valid, healthy choice. I cried so hard I could barely breathe. Someone finally understood how bad this was. How wrong they were. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. The prosecutor called the day before to prepare me. I'd have to testify about everything in that locked room. My mother and Ruth would be there with their lawyers. The defense would try to make it seem less serious. I told him I could handle it. He said he believed me. Curtis drove me to the courthouse. His hand steady on my elbow. The courtroom was cold, echoey. Whispers, shuffling papers. The prosecutor guided me to the witness stand. I put my hand on the Bible, even though I couldn't see it. I testified. Hearing Samuel's voice when I expected Julius. Trying to find doors that were all locked. My family outside, telling me to give him a chance while I begged them to let me out. My voice stayed level and clear, even though my hands shook. I heard my mother crying somewhere, but I kept talking. Every detail of those hours trapped with the man who destroyed my face. The defense lawyer tried to suggest my family just wanted to help me find love. I shut that down hard. Kidnapping is not help. The judge asked a few questions. I answered each one directly, never wavering. After I finished, Curtis touched my shoulder, walked me back to our seats. The lawyers argued about evidence, charges, for another hour. The judge finally spoke, his voice firm. He found more than enough evidence to proceed to trial on all charges. My mother's lawyer argued for reduced charges. Respected community member, no prior record. Ruth's lawyer made similar arguments. The judge denied both requests. The charges would stand. What they did was planned, deliberate, and put me in serious danger. Curtis squeezed my hand. Something loosened in my chest. The legal system was actually taking this seriously. Madison came over for dinner that night. While we ate, she brought up law school. So casually. Like she'd been thinking about it. "You're one of the smartest people I know," she said. "Being blind doesn't change your brain or your ability to understand complex legal concepts." I told her I wasn't ready yet. Too much. But she wasn't pushing me to do it now. She just wanted me to know she saw a future for me beyond all this trauma. That I could still become a lawyer if I wanted to. Something about the way she said it, like it was just a fact, not some impossible dream, made me actually consider it. For the first time since the attack. Kai called a few days later. He wanted me to meet some people. He picked me up, drove me to a coffee shop. 3 other blind adults. All working professionals. Jennifer, a lawyer, practicing for 15 years, uses screen reader technology. Marcus, a high school history teacher, uses audio textbooks. Stephanie owns her own marketing business, manages 5 employees. They talked about their lives in this matter-of-fact way. Challenges of being blind in a sighted world, yes. But also, clearly, living full, successful lives. Jennifer told me about accommodations in law school, the bar exam. Marcus talked about how teaching made him better at listening. Meeting them shifted something in my head. I'd been thinking of blindness as an ending, but they were all proof that it was just a different way of existing. Solomon set up a meeting to discuss the civil lawsuit. I had strong grounds to sue my family for damages. Therapy costs, assisted technology, lost educational opportunities, emotional distress. He walked me through it. Confident we had a solid case, given the criminal charges. I told him to file it. He started gathering documentation. Cases like this usually settle out of court, he said. Families don't want the publicity. He'd push hard for fair compensation. 3 months passed. Living at Madison's. Therapy twice a week. Meeting Solomon. Learning new skills from Kai. The prosecutor called one morning. My mother and Ruth accepted a plea deal to avoid trial. Pleading guilty to false imprisonment and conspiracy. Probation, community service, mandatory counseling instead of jail time. Part of me wanted them in prison, but another part was relieved I wouldn't have to testify. The plea deal included provisions. They had to stay away from me, couldn't contest the restraining orders. Solomon called later. "This actually strengthens our civil case," he said. "Their guilty pleas are an admission of wrongdoing. The restraining order provisions give you legal protection that extends beyond their probation period." Samuel's trial for the new charges. 2 weeks after my family's plea deal. The prosecutor called. Satisfaction in his voice. Samuel got an additional 5 years. The judge specifically called out how bad his actions were. Committed these crimes while out on bail for attacking me. The prosecutor said Samuel tried to argue my family invited him, that he didn't know I was being held against my will. But the evidence made it clear he was fully involved. Hearing he'd be locked up for years longer. I felt safer than I had since the attack. Kai asked if I wanted to volunteer at the Blind Community Center. Yes. Immediately. He trained me. How to help newly blind people learn basic mobility with a white cane. Teaching them the techniques I'd struggled with. My first day, I worked with Carol. Lost her vision in a car accident 6 months ago. I showed her how to sweep the cane properly, listen for changes in sound. Teaching her felt powerful. Using what happened to me to help someone else. Turning all that pain and fear into something useful. Carol thanked me. Said it helped to learn from someone who truly understood. I left the center that day feeling capable, strong. Not just someone who survived something terrible. Madison started coming over more often. We fell into an easy friendship. Natural. Not forced. She described the apartment layout when I asked, but didn't hover or over-explain. Treating my blindness like just another fact about me, not my whole identity. We ordered takeout. Watched reality TV. She'd give quick descriptions of the visual stuff, but mostly we just laughed about the ridiculous drama. She told me about her terrible dates, annoying coworkers. Asked my advice on normal stuff. This was the first real friendship I'd had since the attack. Someone who saw me as a whole person. One night, she was painting her nails on my couch, describing the color. I felt a wave of gratitude. She chose to stick around. Solomon called a few weeks later. News about the civil lawsuit. His voice satisfied. My family agreed to settle out of court. The settlement amount would cover all my therapy costs, assisted technology, living expenses while I figured out my next steps. He pushed hard during negotiations. A fair amount that reflected the serious harm they caused. My mother and Ruth didn't want to risk a trial where all the details would become public. So, they paid. Solomon explained the payment structure. The money wouldn't fix what they did, but it gave me financial independence from them. That felt like taking back control of my life. Curtis called the next day. His voice was careful. My mother kept asking about me through him. Wanted to apologize in person. Said she needed to explain herself. Curtis was clearly uncomfortable. I told him I wasn't ready to see her. Might never be ready. Her apology didn't change what she did or make it hurt less. He understood completely. He'd keep being a buffer. I heard the relief in his voice that I wasn't pressuring him to take sides. I appreciated everything he'd done. He'd made it clear to my mother that he thought what she did was wrong and respected my decision to stay away. I enrolled in online law school classes. To finish the degree, Samuel's attack interrupted. The first day was harder than I expected. The screen reader technology read everything aloud. Audio versions of textbooks. Keeping up took intense focus. I had to replay sections multiple times to catch details I would have seen immediately before. Taking notes without seeing what I was writing felt awkward and slow. My first assignment took 3 times longer than it should have. But I submitted it anyway, determined not to let blindness stop me. The professor emailed back. Encouragement, tips for adaptive study techniques. A spark of hope. Maybe I could actually do this. In therapy, Phoebe helped me work through complicated feelings about my appearance. And dating again. I told her about the failed dating app attempts. Hearing that guy's voice change made me want to disappear. She asked questions. What did I base my worth on? Did I believe I deserved love only if someone found me attractive? The conversation was uncomfortable, but necessary. By the end, I was starting to separate my value as a person from whether anyone wanted to date me. I wasn't ready to try dating again. Maybe I never would be. But I was beginning to believe that being alone didn't mean I was worthless or unlovable. Kai called. Would I be willing to speak at a disability rights conference? About navigating the legal system as a blind person. My stomach dropped. Standing in front of strangers. Talking about the worst thing that ever happened to me. But Kai explained. Many blind people face family manipulation, legal barriers. Hearing from someone who fought back successfully could help them advocate for themselves. I was nervous. But I'd do it. I wanted to use what happened to me to help others. He sounded pleased. Said he'd help me prepare, be there for support. The conference was 2 weeks later. I practiced my speech with Madison until I could deliver it without my voice shaking too much. Standing at the podium. Microphone in front of me. Hundreds of people watching. My hands sweated. Heart pounded. I started talking. The attack. The kidnapping. My family's betrayal. Focusing on the legal steps I took. My voice got stronger. I could feel the audience paying attention. When I finished, applause. Genuine. Afterward, several people approached me. Shared their own stories of family betrayal, legal struggles. One woman said my speech gave her courage to file for a restraining order against her abusive brother. I realized I wasn't alone. Speaking up mattered more than I thought. Madison threw me a small celebration. First semester of online law school done. Grades were strong. She invited Kai, Curtis, other friends I'd made through the community center. We ate pizza in my apartment. They congratulated me. Curtis brought flowers. Told me how proud he was. Kai joked I'd be a better lawyer than most sighted people he knew. I sat on my couch, surrounded by people who genuinely cared. Chose to be in my life. And I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Maybe things could actually be okay. Solomon called the next week. Offered me a part-time internship at his legal aid office. Working on disability rights cases. My perspective as a blind person, a survivor, would be valuable for understanding clients, advocating effectively. I accepted immediately. Excited to use my experience, my legal training, to help others navigate systems that weren't built for them. Curtis stopped by a few days later. My mother and Ruth completed their court-ordered counseling, but still didn't fully understand why their actions were wrong. The counselor's report said they participated, but maintained they were trying to help me find happiness. Curtis made it clear to them he supported my decision to stay away. Their refusal to accept responsibility proved I was making the right choice. I thanked him for continuing to stand up for me, even though it made his relationship with his sister difficult. He said families should protect each other, not trap them with their abusers. A few weeks after that, I started looking at accessible apartments. With help from a housing advocate Ellie connected me with. We visited 6 places. I rejected most. Confusing layouts. Landlords uncomfortable with my cane, my face. The 7th apartment felt right the moment I walked through the door. The advocate described the open floor plan, wide doorways. I moved through each room, feeling how logically everything connected. Kitchen appliances already installed. Bathroom with grab bars, a walk-in shower with a built-in seat. I signed the lease that afternoon. Madison immediately volunteered to help me move. 2 weeks later, she picked me up in a borrowed truck. We loaded my few belongings. Madison drove us to the new place. Hours arranging furniture, unpacking boxes. She described everything. I memorized the layout by touch. By evening, we were exhausted. Sitting on my living room floor, eating pizza straight from the box. Madison told me about a disastrous date she went on. I laughed harder than I had in months. Something shifted inside me. This was my space. I chose it. With a friend who saw me as a whole person, not a victim or a project. The next morning, I woke up in my own bedroom. Made coffee in my own kitchen. The independence felt almost overwhelming. In the best possible way. 6 months after the kidnapping. I'm working 3 days a week at Solomon's legal aid office, helping clients navigate disability discrimination cases. I take the bus to work, using routes Kai helped me learn. I use my screen reader to review case files, draft legal documents. Law school classes are going well. On track to graduate next year. Professors accommodating my assistive technology needs. Madison comes over most Friday nights. We cook dinner, or order takeout, watch TV with audio descriptions. Kai invited me to a recreational goalball league for blind athletes. I go every Tuesday evening. The physical activity helps when the anger at my family builds up too much. Curtis texts me every few days to check in. Sometimes we meet for coffee. He never pushes me to forgive. The prosecutor's office sent a letter. Samuel's new charges resulted in additional prison time. My mother and Ruth completed probation, but the restraining orders remain. Some mornings, I still wake up touching my face, feeling the twisted scar tissue, wishing I could see again. Some days, I'm so angry at what my family did that I have to call Phoebe for an emergency session. But I'm building something real here, with people who chose to be in my life instead of people who felt obligated by blood. I'm learning that being blind doesn't mean being helpless. And being scarred doesn't mean being broken. The darkness is permanent. The scars won't fade. But I'm creating a future that's mine. On my own terms. And that's more than I thought possible when I was trapped in that room with Samuel 6 months ago. I've built a new life, brick by brick. But it started with fighting back. What would you have done if your own family had betrayed you like this? Let me know in the comments below.